very much. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Board of Selectmen's meeting. Happy New Year to everyone, January 11th, 2018. First on our agenda, Bill Hines and your idea about the proposed Dedham Street driveway easement.
Yes. Okay. The right of the town through a tax title foreclosure, I believe you call it, acquired 2 parcels of land which are bought my property. I have a shared driveway currently, and the town, one of the parcels that the town acquired contains part of my driveway, and I would like to abandon the shared part of my driveway and come into conformance with current zoning regulations.
Sit down. Sit down.
And build a driveway that is not shared. And I guess the first thing to do is look at maps or plans, and it looks like you guys all have plans.
We do.
Okay. And
Do you want to come over?
I went to a meeting with the planning board the other day, and my hunch was if you were going to consider doing an easement, you'd be probably looking to talk to the planning board, and they said they'd be receptive to, going through whatever issues that come into their jurisdiction. I haven't talked to conservation. The new easement would be going over some wetland. So certainly conservation would come into play, as well as just this particular parcel of land is undevelopable and it has wetland and that kind of thing. So presumably you want to get up to speed on what you have. And if you can tell me what you know about, so I don't tell you things you already know about, happy to hear that. But my main, I think at this stage, talking with Dave, is how do we proceed? I would like the town to, I'd like to acquire from the town an easement, a driveway easement, and the parcel property, which my understanding is that the selectmen control it. But that generally speaking, the selectmen don't just act unilaterally. So what sort of process would we be looking at?
That's a very fair question. Yes, you're absolutely right. We would not be inclined to act unilaterally on anything of this moment. It wouldn't be. We would send this back to the land boards and commissions, to planning, to conservation, to open space, for them to weigh in on the value of the land to the town. I mean, the town already does own the land, so we're not looking to acquire it. It's about whether or not we would ever be interested in selling it or selling an easement or anything else. The boards would weigh in. So our process would be somewhat lengthy. I understand you've already spoken with planning board, and Concom in and of themselves might have an opinion about any kind of a driveway ever crossing a brook, looks to be, and wetlands up there. So, I suppose it would be possible for any one of the boards to actually offer a very strong no. But I think that I would love to open this to any questions by my colleagues about your, any might be able to answer, but at the same time, my recommendation would be that in sharing with you what the process would be, that we would be sending it back to the boards for their formal opinions on this property.
Okay.
So I assume you envision putting a driveway over there?
Okay, well, first of all, this is my current driveway right here. And where it comes right here, there's another driveway which comes up here. So the entrance area for maybe 50 feet is a shared entrance, and then a little further up, and then it forks off. Okay, so my idea would be to come in this area right here to connect with an existing driveway. Is it?
Do you-
drawing?
No, I got it.
Do you currently access your home through this town-owned property
Yes.
all the way up?
Well, the portion of my driveway that's in the green is on the town parcel, and that's the, and it continues on to what's yellow, which is where the house is.
So I have a question.
Yeah, and actually, just to clarify, too, you'll notice there's a little nub
I see.
right here.
Right. Mhm.
That doesn't exist.
Okay, all right. So my question is, for you to have a driveway on this parcel of land, don't you already have an easement
I did,
on this piece of property?
on the town property, yes. I have an easement across the first parcel where it enters from Dedham.
Right.
I have an easement on the town parcel, and then I have an easement on the next parcel, which is in white, and then it hits my land.
And what about, this is your neighbor's driveway that comes to?
That other easement is a utility easement, and that runs wires to my house.
From below your neighbor,
Well,
comes up
it's-
from the road and
Yeah,
then,
it comes up from Dedham Street.
see,
And then my neighbor's house, it hits my neighbor's house, he gets his utilities, and then it continues on to my house.
so that's utilities, huh? You see, that this piece is utilities.
Okay.
And your neighbor's house is the McGruer house that you're referring to?
Yes, which is 0714.
0714.
So this over here is utilities, this is your driveway.
Correct.
When you purchased your house, did you have the shared driveway?
Yes, it was grandfathered before there's, my understanding is there's two sets of regulations. One is driveway regulations, which are enforced by the Highway Commissioner. And so that comes under the Selectmen's jurisdiction. And then there's a zoning regulation which prohibits shared driveways. So that's, I'm not like super anal about being in conforming with regulations. The bulk of my motivation is to improve my property. It's,
So how would this improve the
I
property?
wouldn't have a shared driveway entrance. It would also create, if you notice Dedham Street, there's a curve. You can see a curve to the side where, towards Strawberry Hill. And then there's another curve the other way. And when I pull out of the driveway
It's
now,
blind.
it's a blind, you gotta.
I pulled
you gotta-
Detroit out of it twice today.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh. And so there are times when you gotta kind of hop out pretty quick.
Real quick.
And in the morning, you take a right, and there's plenty of traffic, and there's someone on your tail right away.
So tell me about the frontage right here. It seems you have 200 feet on Dedham Street that came as part of the property?
Yes, that was cut out to conform with the 200-foot zoning regulation, frontage regulation.
Okay.
And that, it's a strip, and there's 200 feet right on Dedham Street, and that's pure ledge at Dedham Street.
Yeah.
And then it's also pure ledge back where we hit my house. And we've had engineers look at it, and there's just no way to.
Get through it?
There's always a way,
Yeah.
but it's not a reasonable way to proceed.
It seemed to me from just driving by and trying to get a sense for exactly what you were bringing to us and all the various things that our chair has mentioned to you, that there's a significant elevation decrease from where your property is to Dedham Street. It seemed to me about 20, 30 feet or so above the grade.
About right, yeah. My driveway's uphill a whole ways.
Right.
There's one section where it's steeper than the other sections. And so as you're going toward my house, it's basically uphill. If you're coming the other direction, that's where all the water flows. There's a pond, and then eventually there's a culvert that goes under Dedham Street, which eventually lands in the Charles River.
What's behind your house? So this section that is right here, that goes back to Wilsondale, and
This section here used to be the Charlie Bean farm. I don't know how far I go back. And I think he donated it to the town, and I think he donated it, it wound up with conservation is my understanding. So it's owned by conservation, or it's owned by the town, and I guess it goes into various places, but my understanding is that conservation is that. And then these are houses through here.
Yeah.
This is the Coopers, if you know the Coopers, it's now
Keens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I knew that this land had transferred at some point in time, been conveyed by sale or whatever, and I know the Keens are here, and I know that this property, it's just hard, obviously, as you see on this map, to determine how far it goes back until you get to Wilsondale, and then, I know that the Wilsondale would be approximately right here on.
Yeah, Strawberry Hill comes out,
Yep.
and Wilsondale comes across. I'm not sure which, well, this is not the one before the corner. I think it's this one, another one, and then the house on the corner.
I have a question, Mr. Hines. Where, I know we're not talking about your neighbors, but where is the driveway that serves the McGrewers?
It comes in the same as mine.
Okay?
And it comes in basically like this.
It goes more to the right.
So you share this first 50 feet, you said?
Sure, I'm guessing about 50 feet.
Right.
His driveway is basically straight, it's a straight run uphill.
Right.
And then the fork is right here.
And you meander around a bit?
And then I'm on, I go by a telephone pole here, which is the utilities, and then continue on the McGrew property until it hits the town property. So,
Were you aware that this property was perhaps on the market, or could have been on the market, or?
I'm very aware of the history of the property. It's a long history if you want to go into it.
No, it's not, I didn't mean that. I just meant that you're acting now after it's come to the town, and I just wondered why you waited.
Well, I waited, I made attempts to purchase the property from the National Credit Union Association, who received the property because it wound up in a portfolio of a credit union that went bust. And then they sold it to a guy by the name of Asman. I was unable to come to agreement to buy it from him. He struggled for years, if not decades, to develop the property into at least one building lot. And he failed and failed and failed. And eventually he stopped paying taxes. And other liens piled up on it. And the liens on the property piled up well over $500,000.
Is there any potential for developing the front as a single family?
No.
It's not?
No. And this is a professional developer that banged his head for many years and was able to do it. It's the septic is the major issue. It's ledge, it's wetland, and there's just no way to do it. Now, I was convinced of that for the whole time, so I wasn't about. I didn't agree to pay a building lot price for the property, and so we were never able to come to terms. There are a lot of details.
I understand, and I'm not trying to push you on that.
There's also a driveway in the middle of it.
Yeah, in fact, you go through the, if you go through the registry, you'll see there's an easement, which confirms my easement over what is now town property. There was a dispute over the easement at one point in time, having to do with an easement extinguished by merger. These are some of the details that arose and fortunately my title insurance company was there to defend the suit about that, and in the end, they paid him a small amount, and he wrote an easement,
I see.
which now the town, the property is encumbered by that, so.
I understand. So if I'm correct, the piece that you're talking about is only up here, right? You're not, you would come down? I mean, what are you talking about doing? Coming down?
Well, my driveway already comes here.
Correct.
So what I'm talking about is creating an entrance. Now, if you're out there, you'll notice that the stone wall is already parted for an entrance. And then connecting with the existing driveway on town property. So none of my driveway would be on the Brewer property.
I understand.
And that section would be abandoned.
And you would pick it up here? I mean, you would essentially pick it up?
As efficiently as possible to connect onto the existing driveway.
And up top as well? I mean, you would...
Up top is already done.
But I mean, but you would get it off of your neighbor's property here, or not?
No, I would say everything above would stay the same.
I see. Well, again,
There's another caveat, which the town has an easement to access the 14B parcel. It's a utility and access easement on the same driveway, which is why that little nub is there, because that presumably came from that plan.
here.
Right. Now, the town does not have an easement over that driveway to the 14A parcel from Dedham Street. However, nobody ever put up a stink about maybe you go all the way to 14B. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Well, it's certainly a complicated situation, and I appreciate your candor, because you've been involved with this for years, obviously.
Yeah.
And again, I think unless you have any further questions, my recommendation is that if you are interested in exploring this beyond, then we are going to have rulings from Planning Board and Conservation Commission and Open Space about the significance of the land to the town as it is. In other words, already with a driveway easement in the middle of it, and wetlands up above.
Right, and we need to think about the precedent that the town's setting by selling land for potentially an easement on land for a driveway. I think we need to, we need to understand or try and determine whether or not there are any unintentional consequences to allowing this, because from what I understand is the land in this area is in flux. There are a lot of parcels on the market, so I think we need to tread really lightly. So that's my way of saying this is not going to be a quick process.
No, I understand. I wasn't aware of the Open Space Committee. Should I go to all these places and make proposals and have them come to you, or how do we coordinate with these three different committees?
Well, would you speak to the process?
We'll distribute this to the boards and ask for their feedback, and they may or may not reach out to you, Bill.
Okay, now would you like me to write a draft of an easement or something like that you would present to them, or just a letter?
Just a letter expressing an interest in acquiring the easement, or fee simple, and that would be sufficient.
So
I
you
think
could
it would
say,
be
"Look,
really-
I've got this letter from Bill Hines, can you give us feedback?"
And we've got this clever color-coded map that we can send along.
Yeah, you know.
But I think it would be helpful if we,
guidelines.
right. So I think it would be helpful to show what you intend to do, because it's really confusing. I thought these were all shared driveways. I did not appreciate that this marking was the utility line.
Yeah.
So I think that would make it really helpful.
Yeah, there was one other shared driveway to the property, and when they sold, the two parcels, the two houses, they wound up putting in another driveway, basically doing what I'm trying to do.
I asked the question with regards to the frontage and the shot that goes, the tract, if you will, that goes right to your property, because visually that's going to come up, as I'm sure you can understand when you look at this. It's going to be, the question's going to come from conservation or open space or planning, that you have the ability to access the property without crossing wetlands, without crossing easements, without crossing a precedent, without creating something new. And our intent, Bill, is not to make this process more difficult for you or to create obstacles that don't already exist. It's just to bring them to your attention and to enlighten what we deal with from other people and with other potential opportunities that homeowners like yourself have to encounter.
Okay. And what I'll do is I'll write a letter to Dave,
That's,
and then I'll include an explanation, and if I can hunt out the engineer's report that explaining why it's not feasible to use that.
that's
stick it in there as well.
That'd be great.
All those things will help the explanation. They'll add color and clarity, quite literally, to what you want to do and why you want to do it. It'll also make the process, from the standpoint of going through the various committees, give you at least the opportunity to explain to them visually, this is what we're trying to do, this is why, because those questions are going to come back from all the committees. It'll give you a level of preparation as you're going through the process.
Right. Yeah, I had an engineer's report which stemmed back from the lawsuit I had mentioned, which diagrams the ledge and, you know, what it would take to blast everything out, and how basically it's completely unreasonable to do that, particularly because it's a 40-foot strip and there's a house on either side. And certainly they have pretty good objections.
Yeah.
When you blast, you kind of like put cracks in their basement, things like that.
I'm sorry.
So no, we were in the middle.
No, I was just going to say that I'm sure you can visualize having those conversations and having the conversations with your contractors and so forth. And as you're looking at this, the people around you are also looking to us to make sure we vet that, so that there's nothing that comes out of this where somebody can come back to us as a board or any of the committees or any of the boards and say, why did you do this? Why was even this
Right.
Or that
enough?
it has disadvantaged someone else.
Someone else.
Right, exactly.
Okay, now in this situation, the only person close enough to have an objection potentially would be the Grubers. But I suspect Nick would love to not have a shared driveway himself. So I can't imagine that would be a problem. To the other side is the Crane House, which is now owned by Mitchell Berman, I think. I don't know his name, I don't know. And I haven't spoken to him, but there doesn't seem to be any logical objection from anyone in the neighborhood. But there are trade-offs. Now, I can't speak for the planning board, but after our discussion, it occurred to me later, the trade-off from their point of view is, yeah, we don't like, shared driveways, we don't want them. They're just headaches, they're problems, it's safety, it's, this, that, and the other thing, neighbors fight, kind of thing. So there's always, you're just asking for trouble. So we do like the idea of not having a shared driveway. However, we're talking about adding a curb cut on a
Scenic road.
scenic road.
Right.
So I think that's the trade-off they would probably struggle with. From conservation's point of view, to me, that's a black box. I don't know what I'm getting into.
So when you think about it in the context of, you're thinking about it as a homeowner in its current use. All the committees and this board has to think about, what the future use could be.
Right.
How to preserve, protect, defend all of the various constituents and stakeholders that are around you that may look at it in a different context than you're looking at it as the homeowner.
Right.
So the person behind you may look at it and say something, and the person across the street may say there's going to be runoff and impacting. So there's a lot of, no pun intended, there's a lot of stones that have to be.
Yeah, actually, now you mentioned it, I don't know what, I haven't thought about somebody across the street. Now there's a new driveway entrance across the street from my house. So we have to look at that. I hadn't thought of that, so.
You know, also, Mr. Hines, it's an interesting fact, and why I was asking you if indeed the driveway is existing, and you were pointing out indeed that is your driveway,
Yes.
that if we did absolutely nothing and simply maintained the status quo, you still have access to your home. It still goes through town-owned land. There is an easement for that. The only thing that is disadvantaging you, if you will, is 50 feet of a shared driveway.
Yes.
So this is a lot of action for a town to take to allow you to purchase a piece of property just because you're trying to get rid of 50 feet of shared driveway that has been grandfathered in for any number of years and that you knew when you purchased the house. I'm not trying to prejudice anyone, but I'm trying to explain why the boards will look at this and say, you already have the easement. It's not as though you're looking for it's not as though you have a driveway down the other side and you're looking for an easement that would allow you to have this driveway. That is what you have. You already have it. So it's the second curb cut just to get rid of 50 feet of shared driveway. And that's what planning board, Concom, open space will be weighing against leaving land essentially undisturbed. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do see what you mean. Yeah, I don't know how much weight it carries, but the safety issue is the other issue, as
Right.
opposed to.
I understand.
Yeah, there's trade-offs and balances, and I'm perfectly willing to go through the process
Right.
and hopefully come up with a good result.
Right.
The other part that exactly to what Mr. McCann was describing in the safety issue, the common driveway that you shared is not going to go away. When I pulled into the driveway to see what it was like today, to realize it's a shared driveway, and in our reports that we got, obviously it shows it's a shared driveway. You come in and there's a way to actually quickly turn around. You can, because of the neighbor, your one driveway goes one way driveway goes the other. So you can just turn around, back and turn around, which is what I did. So you coming out, that driveway, that curb cut is not going to go away. It's not going to improve. If we move this to where you want it, it's not going to improve that person's driveway. It just adds another
Right,
driveway.
it doesn't
Makes
help Nick except for
Right.
whatever amount of.
Convoluted way of
Yeah,
saying it.
both come in at the same time, or somebody's checking the mail, that kind of thing.
No.
Right. Now, the other thing too is, I've been to many Board of Health meetings, making sure that all the Ts were crossed and the Is were dotted, and to ensure what, by regulation, there's just no way to put a septic system in there. Also been to conservation meetings about this land. In other words, I've been on the other side of this property from a developer who's trying to develop. It's very much in my interest, and I think it's in line with the town's general interest of preserving land, and there's wildlife, there's all kinds of things, and I'd be thrilled if there was a restriction on the property saying it could never be turned into building lots. And I don't know how that, my driveway situation aside, certainly would be happy to see the town put some restrictions on the property, just so people don't have to go through the headaches of, people that want to do things on the property.
Well, and that will be helpful to Concom to share that view with them.
Yeah.
So we appreciate your coming. It's a very interesting situation. If I were putting together, and Mr. Ramsey, I will defer to your judgment on this, but I was thinking, I was so interested in what Mr. Hines was saying about the past history he went through with the prior buyer, the prior owner, and then Mr.
Well, it was, the original property was owned by a guy named Ed Brown, who sold it to a developer in town named McIntyre, who cut the land up in all different kinds of ways, and went to the bank with pie-in-the-sky engineering plans that could never be done,
Right.
and was able to borrow a lot of money against the property based upon various engineering plans, and eventually he walked away from it.
I understand. It's just a very interesting telling history of a piece of land in this town. In other words, Concom, open space, planning board might be very interested in just a little short synopsis of that history.
Okay.
Just because it sets the stage for what has happened in the last couple decades and where you are and how you have followed this land for all the time. I'm not saying it would change the outcome. I'm just saying,
Yes.
when you submit a letter,
Well-
the history might prove interesting.
Well, it is interesting too, because the membership of various committees changes over the years, and
Correct.
I've been at it for years.
Correct.
And when I was at the planning board, they were interested in the history a little bit.
Sure.
And then, and one of the questions was like, well, how did that ever happen?
Uh-huh.
And then, I forget his name, but it's the older gentleman on the planning board?
Mr. Carlucci?
No, Charlie Long.
No.
No, not,
Oh, Henry Faulkner?
Henry
Faulkner,
Faulkner.
yes. And I sort of known him a little bit before, and I know we've been on the planning board a long time.
Yes, he has.
And
He's the historian.
yes. And one of the members says, well, how the heck did that ever happen? And then I turned to Mr. Faulkner and I said, well, the property is owned by a guy by the name of McIntyre, and it clicked
He went-
completely.
right.
The other members aren't from that generation, so they didn't know the history there. I don't know if any of you folks are familiar with that whole soap opera, basically.
No, and it's very interesting, because here's the piece of land that has withstood many different owners and different circumstances, and so I think it would be helpful for the boards to hear a little piece of that. Not a big, long
Yeah,
treatise,
yeah.
but something short.
Well, I'll try to get as concise, but explaining as much as possible, and a letter to you that paves the way to send it to the three other commissions.
Okay.
And then I'll keep bugging you.
Absolutely.
Keep bugging Dave, I assume?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, it's his-
That's right.
No, that's his full-time job.
Love to see it, Bill.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much for coming in.
All right.
It's not bugging, it's persistence, making sure the
Keep my eye
process is
on the
moving.
ball.
Thank you, Mr. Hines.
Thank you.
Very interesting, very interesting. The next item on the agenda is to review the 2018 annual town meeting warrant articles submitted to date. We have a number of boilerplate articles that were on every single year. We're not with, I see no need to go through these item by item. Do you have any comments or
No,
any
and-
questions that you have?
And we're not approving them.
No, it's just about,
And the warrant hasn't closed.
That's
correct.
Right, so it closes the 22nd? 26th.
there are a number of placeholders, as you might expect. Do you, board, have any questions? The reserve fund is the same, 250. I'm looking up at Mrs. Canny. Yes, same, 250. Open Space is requesting $10,000. They would like to update the open space and recreation plan. The replenishment of the Concom fund is the $25,000 that we do each year for them.
Right, and there are two selectmen articles. One looks like a placeholder for the Carroll Community Center.
Mhm.
And then the other one is an OPEB trust fund authorization.
That looks like it's going away, but we're having.
Okay, because I wasn't, there's the first I've ever seen that, so I was
It was
gonna ask what it was related to.
municipal modernization.
Okay.
But he's looking into it for us.
Another interesting warrant article is from recycling to adopt a new bylaw to establish a revolving fund account for recycling materials sales proceeds. So it's seed money, it's $1,500 to start a revolving fund. That's another one. And I'm not sure if I'm missing anything else that you both would like to mention? Mrs. Pugach, is there anything you think that we should be,
No, it's really straightforward.
okay?
In some of these, I mean, the open space and rec plan has to be updated in order to continue to receive the funding. The Concom fund, $25,000, that's become sort of standard now.
Right.
As you know, for the Porter property.
Right.
They were able to donate $75,000 towards that purchase.
It's wonderful.
In return for being the monitoring agents under the conservation restriction. So it's money well spent. And the regional schools are in the process of preparing to send around the intermunicipal agreement for the capital costs. Yeah, and they prefer the board see it first, done it before, and vote it and sign it, and then sign it. So,
Because I see there it said to be dismissed, but it's contingent upon both Sherburne and Dedham.
that's right. That was from last year. I just, I didn't take that out.
So my question was, I don't remember approving it. Did we already do this?
Oh, no. I just used last year's as a starting point. I didn't take it out yet.
That's great. Any questions?
None?
Mr. Ramsey, anything you wanted to add? No? Thank
Well,
you.
we should just remind people
Right.
Yes.
Warrant is open.
Warrant is open.
Warrant is open.
until the 26th.
2 more weeks.
And that's 1 p.m. on the 26th.
1
Okay,
p.m.
1 p.m.
Is the 26th a Friday?
It is. It's the day after your meeting. So you'll, I believe we'll have a first draft of the warrant to then.
Perfect.
Well, get going on that.
The 25th, right, that's
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Giving yourself a to-do list.
Well, thank you both, that's great, and thank you, Ms. Pugach and Mr. Ramsey for this, and Mr. Schiller, thank you very much for everything. Next on the agenda is to approve the 2018 mileage reimbursement rate. Would you speak to that, please?
Sure. Every year, the IRS sets the reimbursement rate for business travel, and the town uses that rate, and actually this year it's gone up a cent. Some years it goes up a penny or a penny and a half, some years it goes down. So it's now 54.5 cents reimbursement per mile, and that is up 1 cent from the 2017 rate.
Any questions, board? I will entertain a motion
Move that we accept the increase
to 54.5.
to 54.5%.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And we have come, in fact, you made such a fitting comment, Mr. Jeffries, about that we were on this warm evening talking about washed sand.
I think my comment was the first warm evening above 30 degrees this month.
Well, I was
But
thinking
we
there's a
didn't.
lot of washed sand on the road.
We didn't need the sand.
We'll be even more washed tomorrow, that's right. That's
Can I just say, before we vote on this, to discuss it, that from a citizen's perspective, what a spectacular job that Mr. Hughes and his
Agreed.
team
incredible.
did. When you're out on the roads the day after, 2 days after, whatever the case may be, we live on a hill, so it is really pronounced when you see what everybody else goes through. And they did a spectacular job. They do a spectacular
Yes,
job.
they
It's
do.
so consistent. It's amazing. So to Craig and to Bobby Tosi and to all the people at the highway and department, thank you. Very well
I
done.
echo that. In fact, I'm always amazed. You come out of hibernation after a storm, you hit the roads, you're driving smoothly through, and you cross over the border of Dover into another town, and it is like an entirely different world. Like a bomb has gone off on the other side of the bridge.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. So we're very lucky.
Totally agree.
Very fortunate not to have street parking.
Well, true.
That's very true.
That's right. That
That-
simplifies life.
Right.
Yeah. you're
So,
right.
so the washed sand bid of 447,000, I'm kidding.
So, Mrs. Pugash, would you mind speaking to the wash sand?
Sure. So we went out to bid, as we do every year, for the wash sand. And the bids were open on December 14th. The difference this year was based upon discussions last year of the board about why we had this certain radius, and did it make sense because there was such a disparity between the one who fell within the radius and the one that was outside of that radius, that perhaps we should reconsider.
Expand the radius.
Yes, or reconsider how we did this, so we broke it up into 2 bids this year. And the bid for sand and deliver, we did not have a radius as long as they could deliver within a certain time frame. I think it was 3 hours. And then the picked up, that you had to be within the radius because that would be less often, and it would be our guys driving to that location. And so we had 2 bids. Essentially, PA Landers was the low bidder, so they were the ones outside the radius previously. They sand delivered for $15.45 per ton, and that's $5.30 less than last year.
It's wonderful.
And then the sand picked up is SM LaRusso over in Walpole, and that's $18.25 per ton, and that's $1 more than last year. So we feel that this is a way to sort of make it work, and there wouldn't necessarily be such a disparity and limit the number of bidders that we have for wash sand.
It's excellent.
So we're
Excellent.
gonna split it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a great idea.
I think so too. And we really do appreciate it because we did notice the disparity last year.
It was
So this is-
significant.
Right, this is
Yeah.
very much closer and feels
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Mr. Ramsey sat down,
I-
Mr. Hughes and I did a pretty thorough analysis upon
My,
request.
yeah, well,
Right.
it was something I brought to the attention of the board, and I had the conversation with Mr. Ramsey, and then I had the conversation with Craig, and Mr. Hughes was very thorough in his explanation as to why and the difference, and it really becomes a matter of, quite literally, timing of the weather, which you can't do and you can't predict, and you have to have the ability to, on a moment's notice, pick up the phone and have 2 or more trucks deliver what we need.
Right.
So, back to our original comment, we
Right.
are the beneficiaries
Oh my gosh.
of this. We all love it. We all think it's such a great idea. Well, for them to have that at their disposal,
Right.
they have to have the ability for this to be delivered on, quite literally on a moment's notice, and you can go through a lot of this very quickly.
Well, and
So-
I wanted to comment also that we've had some pretty dramatic weather incidents since we've had our last selectmen's meeting. In fact, that weekend ice storm, I think in some ways was more hazardous and threatening. It was a holiday time, right at the heart of the holidays, and for Chief Hughes to have had this entire set of streets safe and available for people to move around and guests to move around and family to come and go and move around was amazing. So you're right, the sand is put to use all the time. in different forms, and the snow is a part of it, and the ice is another huge part of it, so.
My dog's doing a really good job sweeping the streets for Dover.
That's great.
The bill is forthcoming.
Thank you for her service.
Right. Well, I would entertain a motion for awarding the wash sand bid.
Move, Madam Chair, that we accept the bids as submitted for the wash sand for the delivered and for the picked up.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. And now, Mr. Jeffries, we are at,
I feel like this
I hate
is
to-
the weekend update segment
I know.
of Saturday Night
I
Live.
hate to tell you, it's just one.
This is so sad. There's only one, we still did get an invitation.
And it-
There's only one party and one license, and it
It's
happened.
retroactive. So you missed it.
How anticlimactic is that? Boston College undergraduate admissions, wait a minute, of all the parties I should have gotten,
Stafford.
3 children, well, Boston College, you know. So, Boston College undergraduate admissions staff retreat with cocktail reception dinner at the Connor Center, Boston College, retroactive January 2nd. Madam Chair, I move that we accept this.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And we have 2 sets of minutes. We have the minutes from December 14th.
Both the open and executive.
Yes, indeed.
Wow.
Mrs. DeShillo, this was quite a set of minutes with all of these budgets. My golly.
To keep the template here.
Wow.
Okay, I would do
Oh,
that.
my goodness.
Wow.
What a job.
221 line items.
And not only that, but then the in and out of bold. I mean, oh my goodness. Any questions on the minutes? No, they're wonderful.
We accept the minutes of December 14th, 2017 as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then I'm going to move that we accept the minutes from the executive session from
Excellent.
December 14th. As submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Thank you. We have citizens' comments, and we have citizens.
Do we have 2 comments or 1 comment?
Probably a similar theme.
Okay.
Well, thanks. I'm Mark Lee, being House Hill Road. And I came in October to ask about whether there were updates with respect to the lease negotiations with the MBTA for the land between Springdale and Hunt. So I just wanted to follow up 3 months later to see if we got any news.
So as a matter of fact, we have pinged the MBTA a number of times. In December, they actually got back to us and said they were extremely apologetic for their not responding sooner. But this was something they were still interested in, and they would take a look at it. So I asked the attorney to ping them again after the new year and just remind them that we were looking to get some feedback from them. In the email we sent to them, we were explicit without frustration that 7 months had passed. Our town meeting had voted for this. It was an embarrassment to us that nothing had happened yet. And, we really needed to know if this was something they weren't interested in doing, we needed to know that immediately. But if it was something they were interested in doing, we needed to move the process along. So So we are going to continue to ping them. I believe we're also working with some representatives of Friends of the Dover Greenway to put together a meeting with consultants, just to talk about memorandums of understanding. And I think we have, I may have been the person that did not respond to the dates that were available for the end of January, so I will respond when I get home this evening. You know, we debated whether or not to just put it out there, you know, to be tough and say we need an answer, and if the answer's no, let us know. And so hopefully we will get some traction from our last correspondence.
It's not for lack of trying, it's the MBTA.
No, they,
Actually, can I ask, are we still at arm's reach? I know originally it was the town with a consultant for the MBTA. Is that still the situation? No direct contact with the MBTA's council?
the consultant contacted MBTA and contacted the special counsel that's assigned to this particular lease negotiation, and the answer came back through the consultant from that special counsel, who said that this was still a priority of the MBTA's. They just had a number of other issues going on that were a priority. We are trying.
No, I understand,
Right.
I appreciate this. When you're at arm's reach from the MBTA, it's hard to...
Right.
I think speaking on behalf of the Friends group, obviously it's always important for us to know when we're approaching donors, people want to know, where is this at? And
And
where is
that's-
the town at?
right.
And it's a challenge to say, well, we don't know when that will happen. So we appreciate the work the Selectmen are doing to move along, because we need to feed back to them and say, this is where it's at.
Well, and that's the point we made in our email correspondence. It's, put us out of our misery if the answer is no. We don't want to continue to lead people along. We took this to town meeting. The town told us to move forward, and it's 7 months. I think we've given them enough time.
And I know, an email is a starting point, but is it possible to make a phone call or stop by?
And we've tried that, stopping by we have not done, but we have reached out by phone, and we have asked to have a meeting with them to go over where we stand and what next steps are. So we've asked for that to try and move along the process. Never thought of stopping by.
Wouldn't be a good idea.
Come on, it works in schools.
I know, let me just stop by.
Mark, can I ask you where you are with your fundraising efforts on behalf of the Friends?
Well, I think like Alan said, it's difficult to ask for funds or, without knowing the future. We don't have any clear sense yet on whether or not the lease negotiations will come through, so.
And that's the message we conveyed. There's a lot of balls in the air, so we need to understand.
Have you been updating I know you have a mailing list and you had a very broad constituency in terms of the poll process and the length of the process. Do you update the constituents of the people on that list on a monthly basis, or do you send out an email blast, or are you just fielding calls from your group of people?
It's mostly the individuals inquiring when is this going to start, and you usually don't have an answer for it. And also, I guess, one of the unknowns for us also is what's the price going to be, right? And that's also an unknown. And so when we go to potential large owners and say, well, what's the full ask? We say, well, we're not sure yet. We think it's here, it could be here, it could be there. And so they're the challenges that we have. And so some of that certainty would be helpful to say, okay, this is the price tag, and this is the MBTA have said yes, yes, and this, no, no, that. This is the package.
Right, and that's what we conveyed, we need to be able to deliver. We can't, it's a waste of everybody's time, money, to begin to look at the design when we're not even sure that the MBTA is going to approve the lease.
And I think, another thing to remember is the timing completely out of our hands of the director of the MBTA changing this summer with the reorganization that took place during the summer, the challenges that they're meeting right now with their services and their lines. It's awfully hard to figure where rail trails are in this overall picture of what they're trying to deal with right now and how urgent their business agenda is right now, and where do we fit into that. So I think you're absolutely right, and I'm a little afraid, like parents with children, if you really honestly put your foot down and say yes or no, just tell us, you almost invite a quick no.
The other side of
The problem
that,
is we really need to know. We can't.
Well, I think it was a simple standard lease. It would be easy. We've asked for so much to it.
Right.
That's a complex question.
right, so
And what was positive in their response was we're committed to continue to enter into these leases.
Right.
And they didn't come back and say standard lease or nothing. But we can't move forward, so,
Sure.
and I'm concerned that if you wait 4 years, there's no momentum anymore to raise the money. So there are a lot of reasons why this may or may not happen. It's not just getting the MBTA to approve the lease, it's the ability to be able to raise the funds, and as time goes on, it may be more difficult for you to do that.
I agree. I think once there's certainty about it's going to happen,
Right.
then that reinvigorates the, okay,
Right.
we get to work.
Right. But if it's 4 years from now, maybe you have to re-educate
Sure.
a whole group, right? So
Well, actually, where a lot of the negativity is past, and it's a positive for the town, and all the memories are gone.
the flip side of that is true, Alan, from a standpoint of our perspective. As Madam Chair explained, with a void of leadership at the MBTA, the last thing that we wanted to do on the behalf of our constituency is to push something that there was really nobody to respond to. So in our responsibility, there's a delicate balance of we really would like an answer, but there's nobody quite literally at the top to take responsibility. So from a political standpoint, you have to wait, which is a very difficult thing to do, but we have to do it in the best interest of everybody to follow our charge.
Right. So we appreciate your coming, and I wish we had more specific news, but that's a very good update, because that's indeed where we are. And I remember a year ago, we were saying, well, we'll for sure have an answer by town meeting, but that was a year ago. So, it just, as you said, it takes what it takes.
Yeah, unfortunately.
we have a glimmer of hope.
We'll like the first and we'll persist.
Right.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for
Right,
being
for coming.
persistent. Thank you for coming in.
Right.
Thank you for, we appreciate that there's a lot of people who would like a resolution
Right,
on
exactly.
this. And with some type of resolution, we can go back to everyone to say, here's where we are.
Right, that's right.
So,
Right, thank you.
yeah,
Thanks.
thanks for your stewardship on this.
Mrs. Canny, anything? No? Thank you. Well, I would entertain a motion.
I would second that.
We'll adjourn. Thank you all and good night.
Good night.